So I wanted to show the gritty version of the M35A2 that I just recently acquired. I traded an old CJ3B for it. And I really don't have a whole lot of money in it, but the thing needs a whole lot of stuff. So we'll see how that goes. I'm guessing somebody backed over something and drove over something or something. Maybe they jumped over a stump and hit and then tried to ease forward and hit the bottom and just pulled it over. Crazy. I may can pound that box out. I noticed that the majority of this box seems to unscrew off of here. So if I can unscrew it, maybe I can lay it flat and just kind of work the metal back straight. But I've seen these Deuces being parted out and might even be able to acquire one for pretty cheap, so we'll see. As far as all this, I believe everything here is pretty much civilian. And I don't know if it works, but I do know that where the chain would go, it spins real clean and free, and it feels like it's got that smooth gear oil feel to it, if you know what I mean. And I noticed that when I try to engage these levers right here and here, that it actually seems to turn the wheel a little bit. So I'm thinking that it's possible that this unit may actually work. And it's kind of neat looking. So I don't really know what I'm gonna do with this. You know, and the Deuces, to put it back to factory, you could do it, but it's just that big gap right there, you know, and every time I keep looking at it, I keep seeing these crew cab looking Deuce trucks. And it just looks like a crew cab would just be really cool on a record truck. So I may end up doing that. I may single wheel the rear, and I may put some bigger tires on it. Probably what's on the wrecker over there, something like that. And then turn it into a crew cab record truck. Paint that to match, you know, things like that. That's kind of dream talk, but you know, maybe. It's not the craziest thing I've done. If it ends up being something I go towards. Truck runs, it drives, does not stop, which everyone knows I'm assuming this is a non-winch truck, probably 12,000 pound truck. Not stopping is kind of scary, but we'll have to see about that. It's got the multi-fuel white. You may have to correct me, but I think it's a LDT or LTD 465 or something like that, or 4 something. And it's a Whistler turbo, which is, I like that, but some people say that it's ear piercing after a while, but I won't be driving it that long. It's got little spots that are rust outs, but compared to half these Jeeps I work on, that is basically like nothing. So it's got a couple of them. And I think one of these doors, oh yeah, this knob, for some reason doesn't work. And it's not because it's locked. So that's kind of weird. Got to figure that one out. Another rust out. I'm assuming this is a common area because my last 2 Deuces had that same problem. And then the interior is quite lovely. Comes with the upgraded natural carpet. It's pretty nice, you know. And then the water leak vents right here for airflow and also water to be able to get out. No, I'm just picking. It's just rust holes. There's some more rust right here. So I have to do a little bit of repair on the inside. Love the glove boxes in these trucks. They're like huge. Awesome. Somebody, I guess you may not can see it in the video too well, but that's not little streaks from sap and all that. That's actually where somebody looks like they just got some piece of metal or something and clawed the window. I don't really understand. Maybe it was iced over and they were trying to scratch it off with something metal. The main problem with this truck in particular is when I go to start it, I have to use ether. This thing will not start without ether, but once it starts, it runs so good. So, you know, I'm not sure if it's the hydraulic head or what it is on the injection pump. And I'll show you all the hydraulic head in a minute, probably. Let's see here. I'll try to crank it up so y'all can hear what it sounds like. Probably won't even be able to hear me talk once I do though. But like I said, it will not start without ether. And I've checked several things. I'll go through that in just a minute. I never was a fan of using ether, but this truck just has to have it. sound on these trucks. So when I first got it, this was not charging at all. And there was a wire actually pulled loose on the alternator. Had to fix that. As you can see, the RPM gauge, definitely not reading right. If we were doing that right now, I'd probably be trying to shut it off really quick. I haven't even looked at this when I was test driving it. I'm not sure if this works or not. It may, I don't know. This, I know, is not hooked up at all in the gas tank. So whether it works or not, I'm not sure. And I guess our pressure works pretty good. So air pressure's working too. So we got oil pressure and air pressure at least. Somebody has removed the air tanks, which is awful, and they just put that line right there. So I'm gonna have to put both air tanks back in there if I want to do this. But let me go ahead and kill it. Still kills the normal way there. Pull the lever and all that. I'm thinking somebody literally built this truck just to use it up, you know, and they didn't really care what it looked like or, you know, the story of it or anything. So that's just a whole bunch of junk that came out of this thing. Probably what's left of that canvas top. It's kind of interesting. It had the older style canvas on it. You don't really see that canvas very often. So the main thing that I've noticed wrong with this truck is like I was mentioning a minute ago, goodness, this hood is kind of hard to do when you're holding a phone. Let's see here. See if I can do this without knocking myself out. Okay, made it. So the first thing I noticed, this is my goofy fuel pressure rig. It's actually a let's see, AC thingamabob to charge your AC with Freon. It works perfect for this though, and I can prime it actually with this lever here, so that works very well. But I noticed first that the fuel pressure would only get up to about 15 psi, and 15 psi, as we all know on these trucks, or may not know, is too low for idle. So what the problem was is there's a, let's see, let me get way down here. There, right below this box here is this, and that's a mechanical fuel pump. On the injection pump they call it a booster pump, or some people do, and that boosts your fuel pressure from your electric fuel pump on your fuel tank to about 30 psi when idle, and then about 60 to 80 I believe when it's higher RPM. So what that did is it had a piece of debris in the little plunger that separates the low side and the high side of that fuel pump, and I just took that out, and then the pressure's back to normal. And that may actually be what smoked the hydraulic head. I think that's the fault, is the hydraulic head. This is the hydraulic head, by the way. You can replace that part instead of having to replace the whole pump. And I took it out, I cleaned it, and that's a whole different story, but I cleaned it very well. The plunger did have a little show of pitting where it looked like it wasn't enough where you could catch your fingernail in the pitting. It just looked like a little surface ring of rust kind of around the plunger part of the center of this pump here. So I'm assuming that the super close tolerance it's supposed to have is pretty wore out, you know, to the point where basically that's not going to be worth anything. So I think that's why it'll start on ether, because it'll rev up and run good, and then once it starts up on ether, it has enough pressure to go ahead and make the injectors pop off like they're supposed to. This right here, that's your fuel filters. One of them has no filter at all, which is terrible. It should have never been that way. And then the other one's got a filter, but they were both full of sludge and all kind of crud. So I took those apart, I cleaned them perfect. I'm about to put new filters in there after I figure out this fuel issue. I tried to adjust the fuel up just to see. There's a fuel screw on this model injection pump. Let me see if I can get y'all to it. All right, you can see it kind of in the middle of the screen there, this double nut that locks it. Supposedly that's the fuel screw for this injection pump. You can turn it up a little bit. It's something you definitely want to watch what you're doing, because if you turn it up too much, I've heard that people can have runaways. So that's a little terrifying. Runaway means basically the motor will run itself to high rev and just keep going until it blows up. Super scary. If you have that, the only way you can truly save it is if you close the airflow off somehow, because it can actually run away to the point it damages the internals and it somehow runs off its own oil, and that's bad news. So the last thing that I thought was cool about this truck is the heater system is all in there and it actually operates, which is really neat. The fan motor bearing, though, is a little bit of wear. There's a little bit of wear there, so I have to look into that. But yeah, this is my M35A2 Deuce project. I have to keep everybody updated on what all happens with it. I'm kind of excited to play with it. So far I've had 2 Deuces, so this is my 3rd. Oh, excluding this over there, that's a 5-ton, so that's a little different. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully it goes somewhere cool.